pivot points are important because I know the feeling. My dad did the same thing, and I think that you and I experienced a lot of the same stuff. However, imagine being in a place where we're leading with peace in our families, that no matter what they do, because their narrative, they'll never let us control it. They know their intentions, and then they go back to their narrative. And I've seen that my whole life. My mom, I'm going to quit smoking. She quit smoking for 2 weeks, and then you see her burning it. I watch these continual habits of good intent, short-lived, hard, never truly intentional. That's human nature. I've done that. We all kind of have these, at the least resistance, that's the easiest thing. Exactly. The hardest thing is what happens when this camera goes off and
rolling
what
your
happens.
sleeves up and fighting truth.
What does it look like?
Yeah.
Are you going to take that pass, put the anchor, be real, find a support system? I used to try to fight this fight alone, and then I got my men's group. Man, it's like, man, I got guys that are going to battle with me. Hey everybody, welcome back to Never in Reverse, Always Moving Forward. I'm your host, Jeremy Axel, co-host Doug the Man Cox, sitting in good old Central Oregon.
That's right. That's going to be 70 degrees here today.
Dude, it was like 10.
It was negative 10. It was negative 10 like a week ago.
You know how I know that?
How?
You were hibernating, trying to figure out where you were.
I thought you were going to say you were a weatherman. Do you see Jeremy as a weatherman? Oh my gosh. And today it's going to rain, folks. Oh, no, it's going to snow. Wait a second. No, we got sunshine.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is you wouldn't hear any of it because you're in that rack napping.
Oh, easy there, weatherman. That's it. That's what we're going to start calling you, the weatherman.
So you guys know a little bit about Doug.
Today's forecast brought to you by Jeremy Axel.
Hey, welcome to the show. Today we're going to talk about the rain. No, guys, welcome back, though. Appreciate you guys joining us. Sorry for the Doug and I like to roast each other. This is just a very small what happens in a deal.
Little element of it. Yeah.
Yeah, we typically have verbal beatdowns, and then we get off the phone and do it again. So we get at least 3 sessions a day, and then
exactly. No, there's plenty of quote unquote shit talking.
Yeah, that's all we do. Hey, no, but thanks for joining us, guys. We appreciate you guys jumping on this journey with us, as we do understand that your time is valuable, and we like, learning and growing.
Dorks. Yeah,
exactly. We're professionals, Doug. We're just, this is a new one for us. Doug and I are really, just to give you transparency, him and I were very nervous on jumping into this podcast, starting off. It took a long time, and we're actually having a lot of fun with it now, and it's actually kind of a growing thing for me. I don't know if you're feeling yourself growing, Doug, but it's just it is an interesting.
We about that the other night. We're just, I don't know, my DNA. I'm not loud on social media. It's just who I am. I mean, I can't even tell you the last time I put a post on Facebook. So, I mean, jumping into this journey was a bit intimidating, but it's been fun. I went back and watched the reels the other night on Instagram, and we're fortunate enough. We got a really talented team and very creative, and it's just kind of, I don't know. We have interesting life stories, and we have interesting stories, and I know everybody does, but it's kind of fun just being able to showcase ours. It's been a lot of fun.
It's awesome to be real. Like, I think that's a missing touch. I think everyone's trying to. They got their competitive edge, and I just think this is kind of an outlet. One thing that we started this is we wanted to be a authentic, real place.
Yeah,
you would want to be real and just understand that the reality is we're all human, and no matter what we do in a professional life, there's a lot of guys that pitch out there, and you're seeing all these things of perfection, and it just doesn't exist. And I think sometimes it's better just to lay that out and lay that foundation out to understand that. We're all imperfect people just trying to do the best we can do, and I think it's important.
Yeah, battle scars too. Yep.
Yeah. So, but today, man, we're going to be diving into a very, very personalized area, and it's going to be around rewriting your narrative. Man, this is going to be an interesting one. I think we're going to dive into some stuff that hopefully we can uncover some things in ourselves and give people a platform to exchange, their thoughts with us. Is the goal here, right? Like, we want a community that's just open, and we can chat and just learn and keep pushing each other forward. And, that's what our logo sense is, like, always moving forward, right? Like, we just, no matter what steps you take the day, it might not be 100% moving forward, but you're continually trying to get to that point of, I would call it the next level of yourself. And You know, rewriting your narrative though. Let's dive into that, Doug. So
Yeah.
steps in your narrative. I'll let you jump in first, and then I'm going to put you in the hot seat. Dig in,
Oh
listen, let the
boy.
viewers see Dougie
Yeah.
get vulnerable.
Rewriting the narrative.
Mm. What does
It's
that? Yeah, what does that mean to you, dude?
there's just a lot of things, and I'm still learning too, and I'm still rewriting it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still, there's some blank pages that I'm still trying to, put the pencil to paper, but just, going through, life's journey, from the time that we were,
Mm-hmm.
as a young child, and, the impacts, emotional impacts and things that you go through, and how it shapes and how it molds you. And then, when you go to college, I was fortunate enough, I met my wife in college, and, we have a great family, and he's a fantastic leader in this household, and just all these elements and just shifts and changes in raising children, I mean, in, keeping a household together. I mean, there's so much that, you know, that I've learned over the years, and what I've gone through, and what I've wanted, and what's motivated me. And, it's kind of helped, position what I want out of life, and what I want to be as a father, and how I want my kids to remember me, how I want our kids to remember my wife and I's relationship. I mean, there's so many, impacts and moments through the years and the decades and the periods in my life that have led me to this point. And I'm still seeking information, education on how to live the next steps in this journey. If that makes sense.
I think, I'm going to extend, I'll take the mic here for a second. I think it's the same way. I think the narrative of, jumping back probably when we first started this, I'm sure we weren't very good on the mic. I'm sure we're still not, but we're getting there. I look back to right. It's definitely not in our wheelhouse.
Learning and growth. It's learning and growth.
Exactly.
It's uncharted territory for us,
Yeah. But just jumping back, like the narrative, I think, there is a very, between Doug and I, we have a very common pattern and some things in, and I would say not self-serving. I would say that we got some standard narratives, and I'll get more specific in this, but I just look back at, things that we've already shared, and then just things that we share behind closed doors, and just, I would say, I would almost call them anchor burdens, right? Like of things that are out of our control. And what I mean by that is you and I have a very common theme, and the way that we are raised in terms of having a presence of what I intend to be in my home as a leader in this isn't to drive any focus towards this sector of life, but you and I had very, very similar natures of motherhood. And honestly, I look at those narratives of what we still carry, and you and I have a very rooted narrative around our moms. And
Mama drama.
It's hard, dude. I just
Make it light, but
historical patterns, but you're right, man. Like, the triggers, the anger, the resentment, all these things. And we're in our 40s, and I look at like the progression that you and I've made since even starting this journey, and where we're heading, and the truth. But then when we chat, like some of the subconscious statements that you and I can tend to relive are,
but it's been therapeutical, I think, for us both, because of like experiences, and where we share, and, what we're going through, and, moments in those periods. We've talked about this a lot, and, how it's, shaped and molded us as well too, to a benefit. But then again, some of those scars are seen again and felt again, from
and I think sometimes you and I, when we do peel that layer back a little bit, sometimes it just, I sense, and this is a goal of mine, and I don't know what the goal looks like, is that I can control the narrative. I mean, not control it, but I can steer the narrative, because nothing is in my control. I like to, I feel safe when I'm in control because of how I was raised. But the narrative that I've told myself is a derivative of maybe that moment in time, but I can control how I feel today. And I think you and I need to do a better job of just taking a deep breath, man, and letting that moment pause and understanding that that's what happened back then. But today we can have this solid foundation and boundaries within ourselves to control the narrative of truly what we want in our families and where we want to go and how we want to feel. Like, because you and I can bring up a topic and it's like instantaneously, I know exactly what you and I feel like this layer of anxiety or resentment and that could be that I feel like we've carried that long, that not that they haven't done continual things to trigger those moments, but I still think that the core suitcase of baggage is coming through there. The thing that, for what I sense is just having an authentic, true, staple moment, that person that is honest and real is kind of what I've always desired. And what I've started to learn is that my desires of that are casting what I really want. And if that person's not quite capable.
And your story and where you're at in your life reminds me so much of my dad's and what my dad went through and what he wanted for his life and his kids is a lot like this, what you're going through. When I was young, he's like, I wanted to rewrite our family story. I did not want you guys, to fall into, the traps of how I was raised. My dad grew up in a broken home as well, too. His mom and dad split when he was, I think first or second grade, so there was that broken family. But my dad was adamant that he wanted to rewrite the story. He wanted more for his kids. He wanted more for his family, his career, everything. And I look at you and what you're doing, you and Jess and your two boys, it just reminds me so much of the direction that you're going was a direction my dad went. And especially with the impacts that you had, in your young adolescence, in your home, with your relationship with your mom, relationship with your dad, and how you are, it's my job. I'm going to create more for this family. I'm going to do more for this family. I'm going to be a part of it. And we're going to rewrite our story.
Yeah, that's true. And I think the thing that's tough is that I haven't always had that intention. I just think, there were some times where I was actually driving the same narrative, to be honest with you. And it was like, man, I'm not showing up. I'm not showing up here the right way.
You didn't have, a parental influence of the right way to do things in some cases, and that's
well, my stepdad, I got to give him props, man. That guy was a slim human being.
Yeah.
That side of my family is rock solid. Take it for what that's worth. But, my point to this isn't to put someone in our network, like our moms down or anything like that, but it's just the facts of the instances in the moments that they did do, they showed up this certain way. That was their choice, and the accountability for that is an intent. It's a relationship that became between you and them, or us and them, right? And it that's their choice. But my narrative and your narrative and rewriting our stories to our families is ours. And it's not, that happened because of this, and we can't deflect the responsibility onto them. But you and I both have a responsibility of showing up. And so I think the biggest thing for me and you is like, man, sometimes if we just have a quick discussion, I think we got to figure out, going back to the last episode, is like, where does the peace sit to understand that the narrative, because that's a sense of control that it's overwhelming you and me, like it's got us. And I think at times we just got to let it ride and just be like, it ain't no thing. It doesn't affect me.
No,
like if you wear that, oh my gosh, Doug, I think we just, to be honest, like just that lack of those moments, just understand that we got our own, we're driving our own ship over here, and that isn't part of it.
No, and that's just it. I mean, we can't, emotionally, it's okay to reflect, but I think we've gotten to the point to where, when those situational things or those moments come up, it's like we know when to put our armor on almost, and or just distance ourselves from the problem, if that makes sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but we know that we can't let that impact us, because we need to focus on what is good and what is right for our families, and in what we're cultivating and what we're creating and instilling in our children and our homes. We can't let the negativity and the impact of what we've gone through bring itself in. We can't let the wolf in that's at the door.
And on top of that, I think even more important is if there's interactions with that person that do the same thing, that is 100% not part of it's not part of the story. That's not part of our new narrative. It's not going to be, they can do whatever they want, but I'm so strong and peaceful that it doesn't matter.
Yep.
You could do whatever you want and it doesn't matter. You can say and try to stimulate and poke the bear as much as you want. And that's where I want to get to, is like, man, if I can just be in a peaceful side of myself, that just come with whatever you are. And if that's who you are, that's your own narrative. You can steer it however you want. I'm not going to be part of it.
I've learned to accept it for what it's worth. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest here. My relationship with my mom is just, there were times here up until about 4 or 5 years. Well, no, 3. It was 3 years ago on Wednesday that my stepdad passed away, and I've just seen some changes in my mom and our relationship that just reminds me and takes me back to when I was a kid, and where priorities are, and where what's important to her. And I never thought, and I forgave her years ago. It wasn't. I mean, my kids having kids. My mom was 15 years old when she got pregnant and got married. Exactly. I mean, for crying out loud. My dad was 17, going on 18, and so they had the cards stacked against them. And I forgave them, and it's like but I also used that emotion as motivation in a lot of ways. It was probably about my freshman year in high school is when I kind of figured that out. Before then it just hurt. It hurt emotionally. And I was like, you know what?
Yeah, that's when I were like, on the football field. And that's where I did. I'm like,
that's where I took it out.
And I don't even think at that age, sorry for cutting you off, but I don't
you're
think
fine.
we know what's happening inside. We just knew there was a bunch of anger.
There's a void and there's anger.
Oh, good. Yeah. It's like, and to brace you, because I'm in the same boat, like in a different side of things, what I've learned though is you and I might, let's say we're pushing to rewrite our own narrative, and most people aren't, man. My interactions with my mom are great intentions, but never intentional to rewrite the narrative in a concrete fashion that is sound and grounded and deep. Meaning, no matter what comes at me, I'll never have another drink. Me, right?
Yeah.
You could put 10 shots in front of me and make me feel like crap because I didn't take them, but I know what my
I'm not going
being
there.
intentional.
Yeah.
I'm not going there. I get it all the time. We have neighbors over all you want. I'm like, I'm good, man. I got it. But it took, I had to rewrite that narrative. I had to rewrite the story.
And a lot of willpower to do it.
I had to sit in it, man, and the struggle, and then so those moments, it's like, I think you and I, and just the viewers understand is like, there's going to be some pivot points in life.
Exactly.
And we're going to dive into that. We're going to take a break here in a minute, but those pivot points are kind of like something I'm in right now at 42. I'm in a pivot, like trying to figure this all
42?
out. And actually,
gosh, you are brave for 42. Yeah.
Gosh, I look good, Doug.
Silver Fox.
Yeah.
Well, is this commercial break brought to you by Hair Club for Men?
This is called Looking Nice. Nice. No, but well, we're gonna dive into a quick break though, you guys. But next, we'll dive into the pivot points of those rewriting that transformational narrative, and kind of some things that I feel. I'll dive into some of my stuff, but I've seen through our friendships and families, the dynamics and things I'm seeing today and experiencing through people in my network and stuff like that. So I think let us take a quick break, guys. But if in the interim, please jump on to like us on and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. We appreciate you guys. And then also comment, right? What is your narrative, man? How did you rewrite a narrative maybe that you faced, and use this as a platform to be real? Like, we're cool with it. Like, we want people to,
love to hear.
Yeah, let's hear it. So anyways, guys, let us jump into a quick break, and we will be back shortly. We appreciate it. Hey, everybody. Welcome back from our short break. We appreciate you guys. Hope you guys got a chance to dive on and subscribe, follow us, leave a comment. We're open, man. Let's hear your story. It's not just ours. So we're just trying to be that platform. So anyways, we're going to dive back into the pivoting points of the narrative. Doug, I guess I can take the lead here, man. I had a situation with my mom a few years back, and my narrative, just kind of give an insight to my narrative. My narrative has always been a lack of control around my emotional side of things. I'm still trying to figure out where that sits and like why I have this, but I have some baseline understanding of what I saw as a kid and the leadership in my home, or the lack thereof, the attempt of it. My parents are young too, right? Like, the thing that I understood, and I used to use that as I didn't understand it. I kind of get it now. I do get it. The choices that they made are still a responsibility of those people. And that's my book. That's how I view it. That's the narrative that I feel. But I do know the responsibilities at this stage in my life, and the narrative that they still control. If it's still in the same alignment, like, I've talked about with that time, that's where the struggle is. That's where it sits. That's where I've came to this pivot point.
And you've shared, like the moments with your mom and the examples, and you've pointed them out to her, but yet there isn't any engagement or understanding of how you feel. There's an excuse, or there's a position that they take that they aren't willing to listen and recognize where this relationship's astray and why, and how to, in trying to fix it. Am I right?
Yeah, I think I just think it's the narrative of them and the unwillingness to recognize most people it's hard to be self-reflective. It's hard to take ownership when you're wrong. It's hard to, it's hard to say, man, I was wrong. And not saying that I've been a perfect son to my mom, right? Like but I was emotionally not.
I can't imagine raising your ass. I can't imagine.
Yeah, no, I mean, but if you do it, I think if you have the leadership flow, my kids are busy, but man, if you lead them, not just being a parent subconsciously and saying this is how I was taught,
right?
But trying to be more present in yourself, to be present in them and understand it.
Yeah.
But if you feel something coming up, grab that thing. I had last night, man. My kids were getting anxious, and I said, "Hey, Sterling, just hold on, bud." And I just came in with a calm presence, and it was a present to him, and I held him and rubbed his, like, I just was with him in that moment, and it was just rewriting that narrative in myself of what I wanted to react with, which is what I typically do, is like, boom, versus rewriting that moment and owning it. Actually, that was a nice pivot, right? Like, wow, the outcome was exactly what I would want to do, but I did it. I had to show up and rewrite my way of doing it to give him the best.
And go at it in a different fashion in the moment.
He's a kid. I mean, I can't expect him to have any self-control around how he doesn't even know what that is. He's like, man,
your boys are 4 and 5 years old. I mean, they're just, I remember my kids at that age are running around with their hair on fire constantly,
So, but let's stay on the topic of the pivot, the signs to pivot. I felt like there was a time for me when, staying on the topic of my parents, I didn't have a lot of clear boundaries in my life with that. I was just kind of flailing. I set a boundary with my mom, and she stepped over it, and that's when I pivoted. And then the narrative of her was all these falsified statements outside of me that she's controlling your own narrative to protect herself and all these things, right? And I couldn't steer the ship that way. I couldn't hear that from anyone else and understand that was okay for me, but I was okay with it because I know what happened, and I know the truth behind the actions. Whether she's not conscious enough to remember that, which is truly what I feel like, but it still doesn't give someone to not take ownership or understanding or listen or apologize with the authentic truth of that, give that moment some space. So anyways, I pivoted.
The selfishness inside showed. Yeah.
I mean, or just the lack there of an understanding of, or self-awareness, all the things that matter, right? Like that's, if you've never been taught and you're in your 60s, I mean, chances are you're probably not going to steer that ship ever unless you really, really get to work.
Yeah.
Day in, day out. What are you doing when no one's looking? But so those pivot points, I think, rewriting the narrative in my book is like just trying to be more grounded and acknowledging where I sit and just making small movements and, seeing those microscopic wins. You're not going to pivot this ship on a 40 after 40 years or whatever, wherever you're at in your journey. You're not going to pivot that in a day.
No.
So, I think that the, couple episodes back of the micro habits is like grabbing it, realizing that's a pivot point that needs to occur. And then I've been doing this. Hey, if I make a mistake or I react something to my wife or my kids, and I need to keep doing this more because sometimes I forget to do it.
Yeah.
Let me try this. Let me try it again.
Yeah.
Let's
rewind the tape. Let's start over.
Right there. Let's start over again. Sometimes, man, I'll go walk outside in the garage and come back in.
Yep.
Start fresh. Hey guys, and rewrite that narrative to show that I want to pivot, that I'm showing them that you can make mistakes.
Well, and you recognize you pivoted the wrong direction. So hang on.
Yeah.
Well, you went in reverse.
But then I went forward. Yeah, but that's true. I mean,
I saw the opportunity to,
Yeah, but you're right. Like, I do it all the time, man. We're always doing things. I mean, we're human, man. Like,
right. Hey, back to that moment with your mom though, when you, going into that, when did that happen? When did you set some boundaries, with her, and where you positioned that relationship? It was kind of a take it or leave it scenario, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, dude. It was a long time coming, and I had to get in a spot within myself to be under control emotionally, be foundationally grounded. Don't let the deviations of what could come through the other side deflect me from a calmness inside of me. And she had done a couple things that just were her own way of seeking control in there. I'd had enough, and she did it again. I said, "This is the last time you're going to do this to me. Here's what it looks like." And I had to set a solid foundational block that if you do this again, regardless of your circumstances, this is what it's going to look like for me and my family. And it was that clear. If it's not clear, let's get through the clarity. And then, deflection occurred where they tried to throw something at you. Yeah, but then they tried to make something about me. And I said, hey, I was ready. I was prepared. Like, I'm going to set this. If you have something that you need to address with me, I'm going to be open ears, but that's a whole different conversation. We can have that conversation at another date. Not even during this call. We'll do it down the road. Like, that has to have its own space, because the human nature is to deflect the truth and make it about someone else. Like, we all do that. Like,
you need to walk away and think,
or you did this. And when you're in the moment of something that it's actually one-to-one, and you have to take some self-discovery and affect yourself, and to go, man, that you're right. A lot of people deflect, so it's not about them.
Or you see, and you're just waiting for their defense mechanism to come up, right? In that moment where it's like, we're not going to have this conversation now. We're going to walk away. I want you to reflect and rewind the tape on what I'm saying, and I want you to think about it. And for you want to see if it's going to resonate.
I wanted to protect myself, man, to be honest. And I think we all need better foundations. We think of, like, to me, we think of, like, our family, like, to be, I felt like I always desired this tight-knit, close family, having dinners, like, just being together and going and just loving on each other. And I didn't have that, man. It was just this fragmented emotionally, it's just atomic bombs everywhere. And it's nothing against how that was occurring. I didn't have friends over because of it. I didn't want them to be in that environment. I was embarrassed. There's all these things, right? Like, that was when I had a pivot, though, Doug, when I was, this is 3-4 years ago, I had to make this decision at some point, or I was not going to rewrite the narrative. It was just going to be, It
You
is what
knew
it is.
history would repeat itself and you'd follow that same path. Yeah.
Not even that, or I'm just going to
Yeah.
I'm going to lead my family that it's okay to have that happen. And that's not
Or
okay.
you're gonna let this emotional thing have an
So
impact.
anyways, I pivoted and I just laid the foundation. I sat behind my honest self, and then here we are, right? Like, so, but
Yeah.
that the struggle to face those moments and not revisit. I don't want to go backwards anymore. I was thinking about this just on a positive note with my mom. Is like, man, I hope at some point, I hope my desire is, I hope not even that she can just come wholeheartedly and with high levels of self-awareness and accountability to herself, to shake hands with her past in a way that she can be authentic to me, and instead of deflect and leave space for her just for that. And then that narrative can change a little bit, but we'll see. The journey, I'm not closing any doors, and I'm not, so we'll see. Yeah,
but I mean, you're holding your position. But that story, I remember, it was, and you and I have talked a ton of personal things over the years. And I remember you sharing that story with me a while ago, probably 18 months, 2 years ago. And I went through a situation with my mom here. It was last April. And my stepfather had passed away, which my mom and my stepfather was the greatest thing that ever happened to my mom. My mom grew up in a very fragmented, nasty home environment, and then, young kids, divorce, and just unfortunate to her, she didn't have a lot of guidance and leadership, to help her through her life struggles. And then my stepdad comes into her life, and my life, my brother's life, all of ours. And it was so fulfilling for my mom. And when she lost him and when we lost him, I was worried, and because my mom is not one person to be alone. That's just who she is. And, so she started dating this gentleman, which, I'm happy for, but, my mom lives in Southern California and we live in Central Oregon. And I told my mom, this was the beginning of 2024. I said, look, we've got some time in January and February, come pay us a visit then, because then we get into spring sports and it's a hustle. And I want you to spend time with the kids, but I want just you to come. I want you to engage and build a relationship with your grandchildren, more of a relationship with them, so they get to know you better. He didn't listen to me. He didn't. And it wasn't like, well, let's talk about this. He just like all of a sudden I find out from my brother who lives here in town as well, 2 days before she's coming, and last year in April, and she's bringing her boyfriend. I came unhinged. I'm like,
but Doug, so what is
but again, through your experience and your story with your mom, I put some stern guardrails up. And I said, look, I'm busy this weekend. I told you January and February are probably best. And I wanted just you to come spend time with us, just you. I said, it's nothing against your boyfriend that you've been dating now for a while, who I'd talked to on the phone, super nice guy. It was nothing against him. Because my mom, she'll worry more about his comfort than she will worry about engaging with the rest of us when we want her. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to be able to see you this weekend. I really don't care. And then when you're ready to talk about this, we can talk about it. And I mean, we've been distant for quite a while up until this last week. I had a real sit down conversation with her, and where our relationship has gone astray, but I had to put guardrails up for the sake and the hearts and the relationships, more or less the feelings for my kids.
I'm thinking about you and me because it's very similar in nature, but I think that what's happening is the lack thereof created some I would say just internal insecurities or whatever you and I have from like a safe haven. It's a safety net as a family when your families are broken, and it creates this weird dynamic, as a kid, if you haven't gone through it or you haven't been through it yourself, whatever. But the control of the narrative of their narrative, what I'm starting to learn is that's their own, right? Like that's her narrative. That's her MO. Like she doesn't care. Like, I mean, I don't want to say she doesn't care. That's her way of thinking she cares. That's her MO. That's her own narrative. She's never put a priority into that. My mom has an MO of hanging out with her friends first. That's her MO, man. Always been that way. Friends first, family second.
Yep. It's that selfishness inside that individual.
Maybe it is. Maybe that's her narrative. I think that's her outlet. I think it's her inability to face the reality of the truth that's easy to see from being inside of a family, inside the walls versus outside. Hide versus not hide.
Right.
Right? Like, you can't hide when you have kids and stuff, man. You're just in it, and they can see every part of your weakness. They might not know it down to the intimacy of where you're at, but when you're with your friends, you can hide. It's easy. That's the narrative. You can't. But when you get to the reality of what is happening, sometimes it's hard to face that.
But it's those pivotal moments where it's, I just know emotionally, even up until, in my 30s, my mom would come up and visit us. And it was great. And she would leave and I'd just emotionally break down because I felt that pain as a kid of my mom. I'm leaving my mom again because I didn't get to see her very often. And there was a period when I was in grade school where I didn't years, and then I'd leave and just emotionally, it just hurt me for weeks. And then it's like, you know what? I don't want to put my kids through that.
That's a lack, like, just because I know the feeling. My dad did the same thing, and I think that you and I experienced a lot of the same stuff. However, the piece that we're like I was talking about is like, man, imagine being in a place where we're leading with peace in our families, that no matter what they do, because their narrative, they'll never let us control it. They really won't, dude.
They're going to at least listen and sense our feelings. Yeah.
Their intentions, they hear you. They say an intent, and then they go back to their narrative.
Yeah.
Intent, narrative, and they're not the same. So when someone tells me something, just like you've experienced, hey, dude, I want to be a really great friend, and then the next week you're like, hey, man, I'm moving, and they're like, oh, man, I'm gonna go on a walk with my dog.
Yeah,
man, your intent is great, but your intentions are not. You're what you desire in a relationship.
There's a disconnect.
And I've seen that my whole life. I'll be honest with you. My mom, I'm gonna quit smoking. She quit smoking for 2 weeks, and then you see her burning it. She'd use possessional things. Hey, give me a new coat, I'll quit smoking. Hey, give me a bike and I'll quit smoking. See, I watch these continual habits of good intent, short-lived, hard, never truly intentional. Quick back to the thing, the quick fix. This is too hard. I got to go back to that. Yeah. Right? Like, and that's not something I want to be critical on, but that's human nature. I've done that. We all kind of have these habitual things, and the evolutionary, like, path of least resistance, that's the easiest thing. The hardest thing is what happens when this camera goes off, and
rolling your sleeves up and fighting true.
Rolling the sleeves up. What does it look like?
Yeah.
Are you going to go to war with yourself? Right? Are you going to pivot that? Are you going to take that pass, put the anchor, be real, find a support system? You can't do this alone. Like, I used to try to fight this fight alone, and then I got my men's group, man. It's like, man, I got guys that are going to battle with me. They all got together last night to go support a guy that's struggling, and they're battling for him. And that's awesome. Like, man, it's the coolest thing I've ever been a part of. Authentic men that are there to seek self-discovery and push themselves, and they're pivoting every moment they can to learn, push. And I've never been a part of something like that where where people that I had never gotten to know got together, and I've been in the group for 7-8 months now, and it's like, you did see that.
You out yet?
Man, I put that narrative on every single. No, dude, I roast them like you should. Nick, our leader, man, I roast him. I smoke him every Wednesday morning. He roasts me now. If I'm in first, I roast him. If he's in first, he's got me. So, but anyways, those pivot points are important, right? Like, and so we're gonna pivot down to the past and the future of that narrative, and I think just the ability to rewrite. If you and I are going through an exercise, I'm going to challenge us is like, Doug, if we could take that strong emotional moment with your mom, and if I said, hey, right now, like, let's rewrite that. what would that look like to you to embrace it from this point forward? What would that narrative look like? What would you say would be like a perfect storm from this point onward, going back and then rewriting it? What would that look like?
Gosh, I don't know. Give me a moment to think about that for a minute. Can you answer that question?
Oh, my rewriting? I know what that would look like. If I could, knowing what I know now, I would go back and I would hold myself, my little guy self, and let him know that everything's going to be okay, that you're loved and cared for, and that you just, things happen in life. Mm-hmm. Always someone else is not something that you need to carry through this world. And I think that I would give that little guy space to just be free as a kid, not mm-hmm. wanting them to grow up so fast, because it was hard for my mom to raise me, that you don't need to bear the weight of responsibility from things that are someone else's narrative, and let him sit in the moment, be okay with that, so that he could have the skill set to love better along the way, to be honest with you. So if I could learn to love better, I would have loved to have that, as like just to genuinely have a deep level connection mm-hmm. with people along my journey, instead of shielding them out as not safe, because I didn't want to let them into that damage, or I didn't know how to even shake hands with that emotional struggle besides mm-hmm. an outlet for sports. That's kind of where that narrative would be. So I think, that would be for, I would say, just as a kid, right? Like, that's kind of on the emotional side. That's probably what I would do a lot of. I would do that, man. I'd bring him alongside, and I would just see that. I'd walk him quietly, and I'd walk him in peace, and I would walk him letting him know that the world's struggles are not a burden for you to carry.
No, and you'll grow beyond it. Just, it's just how you use it and, recognize it, and it's. But
how about you? Ivan, where are you at?
For me, I would like to go back and give some more appreciation to my stepmom. I kept her at a distance because I didn't want her to fill the voids that my mom had left.
I know the feeling.
Which was unfair to her, and I, I've as I've gotten older, her and I have hugged and cried and of that situation, but I think wholeheartedly I still owe that to her, and recognizing that, because she shaped and molded me in more ways than one. But if I could go back to the younger me and just say, knowing what I know now, if I could take that with me back in time and just say, you know what, I need to let you come in. I need to let you fill these voids that I have, from a parental and, motherly relationship, not fair to her, Yeah,
I had a stepfather too, so I can highly relate to what that block looks like, man. And it's a safety guard that's so deep and wide, you don't want to get hurt again. Are you leaving too? There's all these.
Well, I think
that come into it, like, are you gonna,
for that parent, your mom, that maternal piece that is theirs, that they have, but you're waiting for them to come in and fill these voids that are there.
Be maternal. When you say maternal, like, I think that maternal is having a child and being a mom are two different things, right? Like, mm-hmm. They're not equal. You can't say I'm a mom if you're not doing the steps. Like, you can have a kid.
That title comes with the responsibility.
Oh, it comes with it's the hardest job on the planet. I look at my wife at times, I'm like, man, she has her moments, but man, she's rock. She is a rock.
Yep, that's like my wife. She was born to be a mom.
Yeah, but she's stern. She's a mom. She's not there to be your best friend at this stage. That comes down the road when all the things that we're doing now, we're setting those foundations. But let's go back to the past and the future. So one of the questions while we wrap up this episode, yourself today, so what, 58, 59 years? What are you at right now, Doug? How old are you?
58, 59. Buddy, we're only like 12 months apart.
But I've never seen that.
I'm 43, and I'm still not great. I'm 43. So going back if I could go back 5 years ago to...
Yeah. No, so if you take 5 years from right now,
Mm-hmm.
and you could go back and rewrite that story, what does that look like? And then from right from now, 5 years, what do you want that to look like?
Wow. I was always making excuses for myself first and what I wanted. If I wanted to go hang out with friends rather than, spending time with my family, or go sitting on a dang bar stool, on a Friday night, rather than coming home and watching a movie and having popcorn with my kids, I would like to rewrite. And it kind of goes further back than that. I mean, it's gotten better in the last, 5 to 7 years, but, and then just, 5 years looking forward, you know, staying on this trajectory and this path, because I pivoted at that time. I knew I wasn't making the right choices. I wasn't putting my family first, and I pivoted. And for me, the next 5 years, continuing this path where I put them first over anything else. I still need my social time with my friends, as we all do, but not sacrificing or taking away from what's important in my family time that's owed to them. Not putting myself first where it's family, friends.
Man, rewind 5 years ago. If I rewound 5 years ago, I would put myself in a place of
Hair Club for Men subscription, so that stuff shows up. You can keep that beard. Sorry,
buddy. This is called wisdom.
There was a moment in time, and I had to take it.
No, the good news is you can't grow facial hair, so.
I know. Maybe in the next 5 years. Maybe in the next 5 years.
I would remove anger, resentment. I would understand that I don't have to be in control of everything. I'd put myself in a spot where I lived in a peaceful and inner peace, that I could be a present to everyone else, and not just all these things, that selfish habits that I had, and
putting yourself first.
And I still have, dude. I mean, I put my wife in a very tough spot a lot, and I just was, a lot of it was just the narrative of myself and controlling that narrative and repeating that habit. And if I'd go back, I'd just give myself space to be a little bit more vulnerable with her and let her in, show up more authentically to her, and be a better husband and a better dad. So, but going forward, I mean, in the next 5 years, what I see for me to be the best version of myself is just to be in a spot of always seeking self-discovery, and just understanding that I'm never going to be perfect, and putting my kids in a spot that allow them to see me lead them, and keep the small things so that they become leaders
in them. Yeah.
I've started about a couple weeks ago, is just letting them know that, hey, in this home we're leaders, and we are going to lead ourselves and our friends, and what that looks like are these several things. And then I make them do that exercise, and I just want to continue that so that it becomes part of them, instead of reacting like how I did with anger and not a lot of leadership qualities in my life, in terms of like emotional intelligence, the things that I struggle with my whole life. And I don't, because I was led that way, but that's not my narrative anymore. Right. Like
right.
I want to seek, understand, but also push myself past sitting in that moment and dwelling in the past, or just using it as such an anchor that it's complacent and it's hard to get through because I don't want to face it. I just see myself chipping away at the block a little bit at a time, like you and I say, and not looking at the end goal or how hard that mountain is, but just little by little, take a little step. And I'm going to have steps back. I do all the time, but I got to, if I can be more accountable for those steps, I can give better leadership qualities in my home to my wife, to my kids, to, everyone in my circle. And that's what I see myself as, just continually on that trajectory. Like you, is like, hey, I don't want to let the momentum down.
Right.
I want to make that momentum even better. I want to make that moment even better, because we do have one spin on this rock, right? So let's make the best of it. And I don't want to be in that
pivotal moment and staying on that path.
Yeah. Exactly. So, but that's what I see, is like, let's take the momentum and shift it into that positive direction, and not sit there and have that boat anchor that, like, woe is me. I see it, and I have it directly in my circle of things. I see it, and I've been part of that, man. I used to dwell on some emotional things, and you and and that's what I was talking about earlier. Let's face that and just let's rewrite the narrative. It's not the responsibility anymore. Let's rewrite where we're heading. Let's figure out how to make that a little bit lighter so it's peaceful.
Don't have
right.
So to carry it.
Yeah. So on the viewers though, let's for you guys, this what are those narratives that you might have today? Like, what are you trying to control? What is anchoring you back? What's holding you down from moving forward? Right. Like, it doesn't mean, sometimes you need to go backwards. Like, just even this episode, we got to go back and revisit to think about what the future looks like, because that's still there and it's who we are.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it needs to hold you in place, because this world is spinning. And if you're sitting there in space, everything's moving past you. Right.
It's never too late to pivot. It's never too late to pivot. Take the detour.
And yeah. And maybe it's a circle. Maybe it's new friends. Maybe it's a different environment that's going to get you out of that moment, because everyone's anchors are different. And I just think, share your anchors, guys. Like, what are you guys doing to rewrite narratives? What have you struggled with in the last 5 years? What's your next 5 years look like? How do you envision having that accountability system around you that the intentions are matching your intentionality? Like, how are you doing that? Right. So
you want it to be.
Let's wrap this episode up, guys. We appreciate you guys jumping in on this journey. Not an easy discussion. But it is nice to talk about, it's
it's nice to vent. It's nice. Let that off your sleeve. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. So, but thanks for joining us, guys. Drop on, watch us, subscribe to us on, what do we got? YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Nope. I don't know if we have Twitter, LinkedIn, until next time. My name is Jeremy Axel. I'm your co-host Doug Cox. And, thanks for following us. Never revert, always moving forward. And Doug has a shiny forehead. Appreciate you.
It's not great. Thanks again.